Psycho Killer makes some interesting choices, and I'm still trying to figure out how I actually feel about that. So Psycho Killer is a tight 90-minute cat and mouse thriller from the producers of Barbarian. At its core, it's about obsession. It's one person that's consumed with the rage of wanting to catch this killer. And when this movie actually locks into the tension, it's alright. The issue is it doesn't always build up on that momentum. What worked in this movie was the obsession. They let you understand why this person is obsessed with catching this killer. It feels actually real. You can actually understand and, rationalize with her for why she's doing what she's doing. And that psychological aspect really does work in this movie, and strangely enough is one of the few things that actually does. And there are some pretty interesting stretches with this film when they do get into the whole aspect of the cat and the mouse chasing. And at times this does actually capture that tension that you get from No Country for Old Men, which is one of my favorites. But it honestly can never reach that level of that film. It just has a few moments that resemble it. And Georgina, she's solid here. She was the main lead in Barbarian as well, and she was solid in that. She brings the intensity and she keeps this film grounded. But in all honesty, she was stronger in Barbarian. And surprising enough, she was the only one that actually was a good actor in this film, so that says a lot about the rest of the cast. And another thing with this movie, that the brutality in it is interesting. Well, the scenes that they show, because for some of these kills you don't really see them happen, and for the ones that you do see happen, they are very brutal, and they did capture my attention. I was interested in the whole aspect of this killer being from a satanic cult, and I did want to see what they can do with this premise and actually move forward with it. But when there's good, there's bad, and we'll talk about that. The structure of this film was completely disorganized. There's so many things that happen in this film that's spread out in the most weirdest way. It's not completely stitched together properly. The story is like off the rails, and it actually flows very uncomfortably. And like scenes in this film, they don't really like grab you that much because the scenes aren't really tightly put together. And the story for this, it could have been so much better because the premise is there, and the premise could have been expanded to such lengths to make this be like this was from the actual writer of Seven, because it is from the writer of Seven and Sleepy Hollow, and you'd expect something like that from this film, but it is not. And at just 90 minutes, this movie feels like it could have been way more. There could have been more layers to this to make this as interesting as Seven, because Seven was over 2 hours long. They stretched that out and expanded to actually make the story make sense. But in this movie, it seemed like there was so much cut from it. This feels like they had a first draft that was made by AI that there was like, you know what? We're just gonna put this as is because we don't have enough time. And the antagonist in this, visually cool, horror farmed everywhere. Had the coolest poses, seemed like he had the coolest vibes too, but there was no layer to him. In something like Silence of the Lamb, the villain, you can feel the tension of this villain in that movie. And adding on the psychological depth of that character, they actually made that villain enjoyable, but they don't do that here. It feels more like a concept more than it feels like an actual character. And yes, the voice sounds like someone impersonating Batman. This brings me back to Michael Bay's TMNT.
Give me the camera. Oh, look. He's doing his Batman voice.
And I'm sorry for pointing that out, but once you notice that, it's very distracting and you'll never forget it. You're welcome. And then there's the ending. Once you get to the point of what the motives of the killer is, it feels like it's a completely different movie. Because from the start, we was building up to something interesting, something that could have been fleshed out to be something better. But then once you get to the final act and see what his motives are, what were they doing? Where were they going with this? It seemed like it was a completely different movie when we got to the third act. Because when we get to the third act, instead of feeling like a natural reveal, it feels like they pivoted and lost their minds and were scattering around trying to figure out how to end this film. And that disconnection makes the whole movie feel more scattered than it is. And fun fact, this movie was actually filmed 3 years ago. And that says a lot for this, because it seems like they filmed it and shelved it for a little bit because they didn't even know what they wanted to do with this film until Hollywood was like, yeah, we need another little killer movie, so let's drop this. And when you do watch this movie, you can actually see how terribly it's put together. But Psycho Killer, was this movie dumb? Yes. Was this movie fun? Kind of. The obsession angle works and the brutal kills are awesome and the pacing actually is pretty fast. But the messy structure and the underdeveloped villain adding on with the terribly made ending of this film makes this just kind of lame. It's flawed, it's familiar, but I mean, they tried, I guess. So Psycho Killer, my rating for this is caffeine recommended. Kind of watchable, slightly uneven, and not memorable at all. Like, I won't remember this movie tomorrow. But if you've seen Psycho Killer, let me know. And can you guys comment below and tell me who your favorite actual killer is? Because I'm wearing mine, and you guys could tell me how you feel about that. So if you like my vibe, comment below, like and subscribe. I'm James Hancock, signing off.